Leine, bheith si gach lein sin ceart go leor. Fab, fab. A sin déadach feithú san deca. Agus an sin tóiscí sin. Ach ha sin feithú. Bhealm fáilte chud ó ribh seo an dói a chiad as an trethúr a bhí sacking in semester seo, bhí barach fis tíana amach a dheachéad na seimineir an eile a bheits roing. So I'm dóchas cym féic sin sib uile gotrích had is sé an semester. A sé clach bór a han a bhí tóisiúchuid le seminar a ha tíana as an daibh hacking and drasta leis Leabharlann Nàiseanta na h-Alba. It's a great pleasure to be starting off this semester's seminar series with a seminar that's really arising out of the relationship that we have just now and are developing with the National Library of Scotland. We have a memorandum of understanding and we're working together on various interesting projects, not least of which has been a really wonderful opportunity over the past year to share staff and student exchanges. We've had visitors come up from the National Library of Scotland and we've sent students down to the National Library of Scotland, and it's been a really fruitful opportunity for different members of staff from different subject areas, working in different areas at Sabhal Mòr Ostaig, but also different areas at the National Library, to meet each other and discover what each other are up to and learn from each other, and hopefully think about how we might build on relationships and develop new areas of cooperation and collaboration in the future. So it's been a great opportunity for everybody to get to know each other better. And as part of that, we're delighted that this week we have here Almut Boehme, who is the head curator of music at the National Library of Scotland, and is here going to be doing all sorts of interesting things as well as what she's going to be talking to us about just now. We had a lovely workshop with the local primary school yesterday. We've got a workshop lined up later on this afternoon with Sabhal Mòr's own music students, and another one tomorrow morning with the music students from the Plockton School of Excellence in Traditional Music. And we're very glad, Alison, I don't know if you can wave, to have Alison McGilvery here to support and take part in those workshops, as well as Almut. So that's been another really lovely opportunity to develop collaborative working and to look at the ways in which historical music collections can be brought to life and put to interesting new uses. And that's really what Almut's going to be talking to us about now, I think, is how to find out about the collections in the National Library, how to get them working for us in ways that suit our musical pursuits, our intellectual pursuits, our academic pursuits, our librarians' pursuits. And there's going to be a huge amount in this for archivists and librarians to think about how to manage materials. And it's full of promise and opportunity, and really the thing for us all to do is figure out how to get into these collections, get stuck in, get using them, and start bringing them into the things that we do from day to day. And I'll hand over now to Almut to take us through the promises and opportunities.
Thank you very much. And apologies that I'm not fluent in Gaelic. I had a little bit of Gaelic, but I stopped really learning and continue to learn actually 21 years ago. So it's time to get back into it. And I suppose this is a good opportunity a little bit, but I'm not really ready to speak about my work in Gaelic. But I'm glad that everybody speaks English as well. And as you can probably hear and see by my strange name, I'm not Scottish, I'm not English. I'm originally from Germany, but I've been here for quite a long time, and I feel very much at home as a new Scot, I suppose. And now you can help me, because the Gaelic title for the title of my presentation, is actually one that I had a Gaelic speaker tell me, and I tried to learn how to pronounce this. But here we are. You can now put me right. would you understand if I say, cruinneachadhean an Leabharlann Nàiseanta an h-Alba?
Yep.
Can you? Ah, very good, excellent. And hopefully in future years to come, I'll get more proficient. So I'm afraid we will continue in English. And I think, sorry, of course, I need to run it from here. No?
Just, it should be just.
Not,
No?
no, it's not moving. Because ender, no, it doesn't. Okay. Yeah.
Just with the.
Right, okay. Yes. So what I'm going to talk about here today is, first of all, to introduce you to the music collections, because sometimes you find that there are some myths about what we might collect or what we may not collect. And also to talk about the music resources that we offer, and very much split into what we offer on site, but also what we offer remotely. And I think there's quite a lot now that we do offer off-site. And I suppose, dare I say it, I think we have to thank the pandemic a little bit for the advance in using remote services a lot more. And so I think that's probably the one good thing that has come out of it. Now, let's check whether that, yes. So you may be aware that we actually celebrate our centenary at this year. So we have now turned 100 years old, but not really, because similar to the British Library, we had a predecessor library in the Library of the Faculty of Advocates, and they were set up 1689, so much older. But then in 1925, there was this official recognition through the National Library of Scotland Act in 1925 that we should become a proper national library, and we would be called that. And so we still have a special relationship with the Library of the Faculty of Advocates that continues as their own library, in their own right. So they mainly still take a legal deposit for the law books. And we still have access to them, and our buildings are kind of connected up, and so we can always, when people order books, we can get them delivered. But otherwise, we've come into our own, really. It is Scotland's largest library, over 61 million items, both physical and digital, and we do collect now e-legal deposit. So electronic publications that don't ever get printed are now also subject to legal deposit. Sadly, of course, with the tech side of things, access to the illegal deposit material has been restricted due to the cyber attack at the British Library, and it's still not all back in full, but a lot has now improved. But you might just occasionally find, when you search the catalogue and you find an illegal deposit item, that it will just say not accessible at the moment. But I think as time goes by, that will be sorted out. But it just shows what the risk is when you rely on only taking the illegal deposit copy and you don't have any print anymore. That's no alternative. Yeah. I should also say, because we're talking very much about music here and music resources, that there has always been a technical problem with the ingest of e-music. And so we do not have a full set. We haven't been able to take in all the illegal deposit that we would have liked to take in. And we've got a working group within the UK and Ireland legal deposit libraries to work on that. And the British Library now, after the cyber attack, of course, they're revamping and developing new systems anyway. And luckily, we now have a technical person from the British Library who's developing this new ingest system to actually sit on the music group as well. So he can get all the information from us directly, what we need for the music materials to really work and to be ingested in an easier way, so that in the future we will actually bring in more illegal deposit material. So we have had a kind of pilot a few years ago before the pandemic, and Faber Music and music sales scores were ingested as a one-off project to test out how this would work. So we do have some material, but we don't have a regular feed-in of the current material, unfortunately. British Library is currently trying to just take in some material and put it on a safe location until we are able to ingest it via a new system. So, work in progress. One thing to remember also as well is that we are a reference-only library, as most national libraries are, so you can't borrow and take things home. And also we don't really fully participate in interlibrary loans, so it's always a very tricky, sometimes on a one-off, depending on the conditions. We might lend something that is generally, I mean, we used to have an interlibrary loan collection, a separate collection just for loaning, and that was then later integrated and disposed of because space issues and various issues also with the running of the service. So we don't really have a proper interlibrary loan service. So that's good to remember. But we have other things as well that we can now offer, such as a remote virtual reading room using visualizers. So that really brings the reading room to you in a way. So there are other advances, of course. As we lose some services, other services emerge. Oh, sorry, I have to keep doing that. Now, what I find is different in every library, really, the way they organize the music. In some libraries, you just really deal with the printed music. You have the manuscripts in the manuscript collections, which we have actually. The British Library also had, well, they had a separate music manuscript department, but that was then moved over to the music collections. This hasn't happened at the National Library yet. So I mainly deal with the printed music side, with the odd manuscript, but mainly the printed. We also have music sound recordings, although again, we have other sound recordings in other departments as well. And we do have a sound collections curator as well, but very much, I think, dealing with oral history recordings and so on. So there are some areas that are shared with other departments. Books on music, that is kind of split in admin terms. So general books on music, quite often they just go into the normal book collections. And reference are in the music section. But I think these are just really internal structures that also keep changing from time to time. The main thing is they're all in the catalogue. They're somewhere in the stacks and they can be requested and found. Because we are a reference-only library, all the books are stored, well, majority of the books are stored in the stacks. And we have book fetchers who basically their job is just to always take things out, bring it to the reading room for the readers, and then replace them later on the shelves. And in fact, my first ever library job was that of a book fetcher as a student in the British Library quite a long time ago. But I found some interesting material in the section I was dealing with. So that probably was the birth of my fascination with early books. So, manuscripts are in the archives of manuscript collections. And of course, you have had the visit from Ulrike Hogg, who showed you some lovely music manuscripts. So we are working together. Obviously, there's quite a lot of interchange with the manuscript sources and early printed sources. There are the odd music manuscript that is actually in a special printed collection, and you keep special collections together. So, yeah, there's always some crossover. In terms of the genre what we collect, this is quite interesting. And again, there are some myths. Some people think we only collect classical music. Not quite right. We collect all sorts of different genres. We've got popular music, we've got educational music, and obviously we've got traditional music. That's a very important part, and I believe it's the largest collection in the world of Scottish traditional music. Generally, there's world music as well. So we I think are quite comprehensive, because we also don't just collect UK publications or just Scottish. Some people believe we only collect Scottish. We only have Scottish legal deposit, but that's not true. We actually collect the legal deposit across UK and the Republic of Ireland, because it's the historic Legal Deposit Act. It goes back to 1710, and it was all one then, so throughout the British Isles. And we still benefit from it, that we get all the Irish publications. Of course, for Scotland, is quite important as well. So I think we are quite privileged in that. And because music is quite an international part of culture, really, it's music is done everywhere, and musicians travel. I mean, of course, there's a lot of Scottish musicians that have traveled to the continent. Italians have come to Edinburgh and have been quite important in development of music publishing, for example, and the musical life. And so I think it's true to say that you can't just kind of limit yourself to just your own homegrown music, but to actually have a wider open the horizon. And so we do collect, although selectively, overseas publications as well. Obviously, the Scottish material that's published elsewhere is very important. Obviously, we don't want to miss that, but we also then purchase other material. And you need to have a good research collection and music collection for Scottish users. In a way, you can't ignore Mozart and Beethoven and so on, you know. So we do have those, also the collected editions. And then we have some odd items in the collection as well, that is not just ordinary music. And I gave an example of this electric chanter, which we had, I think, tested that it was safe to use, but I'm not really sure whether it's still working. It's just in a box in a stack, and everybody keeps wondering, how on earth did we get this? Who accepted this? And what's the use of it? And can actually somebody, have we ever allowed somebody to use it in, obviously not the reading room, but perhaps we have a consultation room? Who knows? And then recently a rediscovery of a replica paper piano keyboard, which is a very unusual item, and especially the provenance. I must not get carried away here and not tell you too much about it. Eventually, I think it'll probably get into the news, so watch out for it. Now, as I said, it's quite important, especially given that Scotland, you know, is a big country and a lot of people are in remote areas, and so to offer remote service is very important. And there's various ways of how you can access material, and of course there are different types of material. We've got, say, the printed music. Some of this has been digitized, and there's a digital gallery, and now once we get to print out slides or something, you can then just have that as an aid more to find the digital gallery. And we also have subscription e-resources. So I talk about that later. That's quite useful as well, although unfortunately I don't know who has heard of RILM, Répertoire International de Littérature Musicale. That is the main abstracting service for music literature. And so that will, you know, using RILM, you can find any information on articles in journals, books, book chapters, theses, all sorts of things are abstracted there. So you can find sources for topics that, you know, otherwise you wouldn't find. Sadly, we do not have a subscription. We've lost a subscription to it because it's very, very pricey. And we just don't have enough users in a way to make it worthwhile. So I just didn't, it just doesn't do the threshold. I don't know whether you through contacts at other universities, because I think Glasgow and Edinburgh probably still have Realm, so that you can access that resource. It's a useful one, but we just can't offer it at the moment. I mean, I think at some stage perhaps it might be possible to get it back, but I would need to see whether there's any demand for it. And I don't know what access you might have, or through the library as well. That is a question. I have in the past tried to see whether we can get some consortium deal done for Scotland, so that different institutions will get together, and that perhaps we can try to see whether we can get a special price. But I think one of the problems in the past was that if you think in terms of the funding streams, that National Library is funded slightly differently from universities, and also public libraries are funded differently. And sometimes when you try to have a consortium deal, that makes it quite difficult. One other option would have been, or technically is cheòl, which is a consortium system for online resources that we are part of. But up to now, I don't know whether one should try again. They have not been particularly interested in actually getting into new topics and new subjects. So far, they don't really support any music resources. Perhaps that will be a time to see whether one can find more support and actually approach them again, because that might be a way of getting access to Realm, because that's really, really quite important. We have, I don't know whether it is, I was trying to get, I put the links in, but I think they probably won't work from.
They won't click from the
slideshow.
We can circulate them afterwards.
Yes,
and they'll be able to take them.
Yeah, and so I think I've got another slide with some URLs for how you can connect. Now the thing is, the electronic subscription resources, and we just have them under e-resources. They are available to you all remotely, but you have to become a member of the library. So you register with the library and get yourself this kind of online card. And because you have got a Scottish residential address, this allows you access then, because our subscription deal with these resources is basically just for Scottish residents. But that means that you can just log into the website, and then when you go to the e-resources, you can just choose that you want to use, and you automatically can link up with it and get into it. That includes Grove, Oxford Music Online, and various Oxford music resources, companion to music, dictionary of musings, and so on. And there's also Naxos Music Library, which is the online streaming of sound recordings. There's also Naxos Music Library Jazz that we've got here. And also quite an education resource that I really do like is Naxos Music Box, which has some obviously sound recordings in it, but also quizzes and all sorts of games and things for kids. So I think it's a brilliant thing. So I would always recommend that to any teaching staff or anybody working with schools or with teachers to promote that. So I think that's a great thing. Now, we also have, of course, as I mentioned, the copying service. So you can order reproductions. Obviously, it's all subject to copyright. But there's ways, if something is in copyright, there are ways of organizing permissions if need be. So I always think, don't just give up, but just, even if it's in copyright, see whether you can get permission to still obtain a copy. If it's out of print and there's not really any commercial interest in it, then I think it's most likely that one gets a permission free of charge anyway, but you just have to do the paperwork, Then I mentioned that we have this virtual reading room. You need to write to the library to book a consultation that way. And there's information on the website. It's a bit hidden, but hopefully people will find it, or just contact somebody in the library, or you can always email music@nls.uk. ask for a virtual reading room session. And what happens is that we then have some spaces where we have the visualizer camera set up, and we can lay out the original items, and then you basically connect via Teams or Zoom, and then you have like a live session with a librarian who will then turn the page or move it and say, "Oh, I need to see that bit," you know, and so. I think it's obviously not quite the same as looking at the original yourself, but I think it comes quite close to it, and it's a great alternative when you can't just keep traveling down to Edinburgh. Then we've got other educational resources on our website. There used to be a learning zone, and I don't know, because we've now got this new website where they moved that. But we have an educational kind of Gaelic music resource, which provides a kind of an overview and an introduction to Gaelic music. And we did actually have support from a number of places in Scotland to actually advise and contribute texts and resources to this, and Blockton Music School features as well there, so that was really great. I think we haven't really done any updates or upgrades of that, and it probably would be a good idea, because I did actually get some comments, and I've got some files somewhere that and didn't get around to action. So if you could have a look at that resource and feedback, any comments, any suggestions for further development, I think that would be great. Then we've got a number of specialist catalogs databases. They're listed there. There are some that have not quite made it back onto the new website. We have, and I think this would be of interest to you, the Dean Myatt collection of early sound recordings, and that's also kind of Scottish recordings ranging from, I think, 1888 to 1960s, 70s. And it does cover like old wax cylinders and shellac records and reel-to-reel tapes, and some vinyl and a few cassette tapes. But so it's quite wide-ranging in terms of the formats. Unfortunately, some of the formats are so fragile that they have to be digitized before you can make access copies to let people use it, because, I mean, reel-to-reel tapes are in quite a fragile state these days, and people are not used to using the machinery. And shellac records, again, it should only really be used by specialists, and therefore it really has to be digitized. But if you find information on a recording, just let us know, and then we can see whether we can just get something digitized for you to provide access copy. So this discography, Dean Myatt himself published this discography and gave us a preview copy, because we support some of his research, and as a thank you, he gave us this preview on PDF file. So we created subsections by the alphabet so that it's searchable online using the PDF, except that at the moment I need to get this back onto the new website, but hopefully that will be restored, because not the full discography. The discography, of course, is a discography and it's not a catalogue of our holdings, but we have a lot of those items listed there. So again, if you are interested in kind of sound recordings and things, just send me an email, and I can also then see that I let you know when this is back up and running. And then I should mention that a few years ago, it was actually around the time of the pandemic, we had our virtual conversion project running. That was to convert the card catalogues and finding aids into digital format to then eventually ingest them into the catalogue. That has been done. However, we had a lot of specialist finding aids that were not really proper catalogues, and therefore only the proper catalogue data went into the catalogue. But the other data, the full data, the raw data we made available via the Data Foundry, which is a collection of all sorts of types of raw data, really for the digital humanities, digital scholarship, research community to just download huge sets of data and then play around with it to do all sorts of data manipulation and data mining and so on with it. And so all the virtual conversion data, including our specialist tune indexes, are available to download via the Data Foundry, but it's more of an expert user level, really. So it may not really be that easy for everybody to use, which is why I'm hoping to eventually set up some online tune index database just for anybody to use, because I think this would be absolutely brilliant to have that. And also I will later on try and see whether I can show you this virtual conversion database that we set up just for the process of getting the data into electronic format, because this interim, I call it the virtual card catalog, is still, well, we still retain it because it shows us also, if we want to look at the old catalog cards and you see the images, whether if there's an error in the catalog record later on, you can just see, oh, was this actually on the card? And the transcribers, they've done the right thing, they just copied what they saw on the card, or whether it was actually a transcription error and they made a mistake, and because we couldn't do the quality check on every single item, we checked about 30%. There will still be some errors that have come through, but the company was very good in terms of the quality generally to do it. So there weren't that many errors, but you never know. But it's good to have this access via a database to still see what the original card said and so on. We still actually keep the original cards in the archive, but they are now in a different building, locked away somewhere. So you don't really want to ask, oh, I need to get drawer such and such because there's a card error somewhere possibly. It's really great to have this online and just go into this database. And now the advantage is that while only catalogs cards have been ingested into our catalog, this interim retro conversion database offers search access to also the index files and everything. So when you look for the song index, say, or the instrumental index or the bagpipe index, you can actually do that and search it, which is a great thing, except that at the moment there's a staff-only resource, and I'm hoping to, if there's enough interest out in the music community, and that we can make it available for the public, because I think it should be quite easy to do. So hopefully, if the systems work later on, I might just show you that briefly. Right, here we go, just the, I suppose this is what you kind of expect for on-site service. So if you ever make it to Edinburgh, then it's good to know that you can prepare yourself. You can order material in advance. So if you give it 2 or 3 days before you come and say when you need to consult something, then you can have, I think, 6 items waiting on reserve. And as soon as you start using things, you can order more items up, and they will then kept on reserve for you as well for a few days. And the catalogue record will usually also tell you whether this is consulted in a general reading room or in special collections reading room. And I've got some pictures to show you there. We also have a small bookshop and stationery shop and a cafe. So that's a little bit, if you're very busy spending all day in the reading room, you can easily just pop down to the cafe and have a snack, which is a good thing, because when I started in the National Library, there was no such thing as a cafe, and you had to see where you could find food. Well, there was restaurants out there, but yeah. So on the left is the general reading room. We've got this kind of mezzanine level at the top, and there's more seating. And on the right-hand side, you can see the special collections reading room. And this is very popular because of the brilliant view of Arthur's Seat. And also you can see kind of to the leftish, really, that's another room behind glass. That's our consultation room, and we've got the electronic keyboard in there as well, and some sound equipment. So if you wanted to listen to some sound recordings while consulting a score or something, you can do that there. People can also book the consultation room for just some quiet discussion if a group comes in and you want to talk about something. It's not entirely soundproof, but if you talk quietly, you can actually do that in there, which is very helpful. And now, of course, yes, how do you find material? The main thing is to go via the main catalogue, and I'm very pleased to say that we've done the retro conversion, and so you find nearly all the scores should be in there now, because we've done just a very straightforward basic retro conversion project. Scan the cards and then have the data from the cards copied into the database and then ingested into the catalogue. We didn't upgrade anything, although whenever there's queries resulting out of a fetch converted record, I will then amend it and upgrade it and so on. But you might just find that there's some very brief records there or something that looks a bit strange, and some of it is down to constraints, resources constraints with the retro conversion. We had 13 different types of catalogs and finding aids looking very different and organized in such a different way that it was very difficult to squeeze it all into mapping. I was allowed about 4 or 5 mappings into the modern catalog system, so it was not quite so straightforward, but it all worked in the end, although you might just find that there's some strange records sometimes. So if there's anything that's not clear, just write into music@nls.uk, and we're always very happy if you can source something out that you discover. And then, of course, for the full text music, you can go to the digital gallery, and that offers keyword searching throughout. And there's certain themes, and we've got one theme of special collections of printed music. And you can search across all of that. So if you mainly want to find a printed score, it's best just to go to that level of the special collections of printed music, and then do just a keyword search, and that will then bring you up. And I think we tried, did you look for chocolate the other day for the kids to see what we might come up with?
Yes, we've got Leonardo da Vinci getting burned by poison in his hot chocolate.
Yes. And the good thing is what is on the digital gallery is out of copyright, and you can just do with it what you want. I mean, it's got this Creative Commons license, but basically for kind of non-commercial, ordinary, normal use, just print it, play it, do whatever you want with it. And of course, you can then also change it, adapt it, arrange it, make something new out of it. And of course, this is what we really want to encourage. And I think there's a lot of Scottish music in there. And that's, of course, brilliant. It's quite a treasure trove, I think. And then, of course, there's other music reference databases. And there's a few here that I put in there that are freely available on the internet. I believe that when I look at your library catalogue, it seems very much driven via WorldCat and OCLC in a way, I think. I'm not quite sure how that works. But we're curious to find out. Knowledge exchange, I want to find out stuff as well. But it's good to know Rhythm. I haven't dared to put RIM in there. RIM is not free, obviously, and we don't offer it, unfortunately. But Rhythm is part of the R projects, as they are known. There are several reference resources that were born usually by collaboration between some of it was the IMS, the international projects, the IMS, International Musicological Society, and also YAML, which is the International Association of Music Libraries, Archives and Documentation Centers, which is a bit of a mouthful, short YAML. And they started off as print resources, quite often as union catalogues, showing you where the sources survived, and also clarifying which editions and issues or in terms of manuscripts, you know, what kind of sketches and so on, what versions of works there were. And so it's a very useful resource. It's nowadays online, and even the print, the material that covered print is all online now, so you can use it freely, which is great. And Redeem is a similar service. They got another our project, and that deals with music iconography. Again, something that might be really interesting for you, because there might be some images of pipers or, you know, or fiddlers. So that's kind of what's really available. And then, of course, I wanted to also talk about our specialist indexes, and the song index. Scottish Song Index is one that a long time ago now we tested out a way to put this online and to add some new features of searching. And at the time, we tried several times with the HRC to get a project off the ground. And in fact, I was in collaboration with Aberdeen at that point. We got reasonably good grades, but we didn't get the funding. So this never actually matured into anything. But one can still see what we tried to do. The idea was, with the Scottish Song Index that we have, it has got musical incipits, which is really useful when you've got the same tune title, but actually a slightly different tune. So I've got like Highland Laddie 1, Highland Laddie 2, 3, and 4, I think, in our song index. And so it's basically organized by way of, I call it incipit title. And then you get the musical incipit, so it shows what the tune looks like. And then there's some general information about the song, how many stanzas, time signature, and so on. And then you get a list of the publications that this song is contained in. And it basically runs down more or less chronologically, so you get the earliest one. Now, these indexes are all based on our collections, so it's not a bibliography. So hopefully one will discover earlier printings or something and just add it on. But at the moment, it still is a great resource to trace the publication history of a song. And we've got also a general instrumental index of Scottish, they're all Scottish tunes, and also a special bagpipe index. Now, I did mention a data foundry before. Our retroconversion project, we had everything digitized and made into electronic data. So we've got the raw data, which I think will help to try again to set up a big index similar to this pilot database. I think the scheme would work. But to also then start putting all the data from the other indexes in as well, to actually create a kind of Scottish tune index. And just to kind of see here. So when you do a search, you get a kind of one of these kind of first hit results. And that just gives you basically that's the incipit title, incipit, and so on. But also what is kind of new for this, in order to enable tune searching without words, there is a way of using a coding system to reflect the music. And then, because this coding system is actually based on typewriter characters and pure ASCII code, you can actually do searches on a computer with it. And it works pretty well. Obviously, computers want everything to be exact. So if you use an ordinary library catalog and you do a typo, it will not find something because the one character is wrong or something because of your typo. So what you need to enable is fuzzy pattern searching. And with this project, we did actually get somebody who had developed such computer add-on code. And we tested it and it worked actually fine because it was all based on the same kind of code. But we didn't then purchase and actually implement it for the pilot because this was just a pilot project. But still, I can still contact this person. He's from Oxford. And I think one can still utilize that code to actually make this work, because then it will actually find things, even if it's slightly different, it will still find a similarity, and you can still have a good hit of what you're looking for. And of course, you always have to allow for slight changes as people remember certain tunes. But the great thing is, you know, you've got a tune in your head and you just, oh, what's that title? What is it called? And you just can't put, you just can't remember. No? And then you just go and do a search like that. And then hopefully it'll come up. And there you go. You don't just get the tune title, you also get, oh, it's published in wherever you find it, you know, it's great. Now the code is called the plain and easy code, and this is what the record would look like. This is just as an example, so it's of course a bit small to see. So it has got the incipit, it's got the code. Now the code is quite easy to learn, I think, for musicians. When I had comments back from this in the early days, people found it very, you know, it took a duck to the water, you know, on this. It's very easy to, the system is quite straightforward. And then you have some of the other information on the standards and the time and whatever. And then you get the listings of the different publications that this is contained in, and also sometimes you get different first words, or there's also cross-referencing in the index to the other indexes. So like a title in alternative title in green will refer to the instrumental index. If there's some alternative kind of title of sorts in red, it's actually different first words. So, and then we've got, because it's a relational database, also a way of linking up which first words go with which edition kind of thing. So, and then of course you can also link up to the catalog record of the publication that this is contained in, and you can also link up to the digital gallery with the full text. So you can actually see the item there and just print it out. So it's really kind of find a song or a tune and it's there at your fingertips and just hit print and you have it there, you know. So I think it's a nice thing to have. And if one, of course, now that we've got the raw data, one could just put in the other indexes as well, and to have bagpipe tunes in there, that would be really great. But we need a project for that. This is the plain and easy code, slightly adapted because we use this on an access database, and certain characters were used by the system, so you couldn't use them. But I think that's what other projects have done as well. And it was designed to work with complex classical music, but it also works with just ordinary music, obviously. So, and because of typewriter characters is just ASCII, it makes it quite easy. So, and you can kind of see on the back, it was just a overview of the main coding information there, and also the source. It was developed by two music librarians in the States in the 1960s, and it was published in a music library journal, really for everybody to use, for musicologists to use, for music librarians to use, and musicians to use. So in a way that helps that you don't have to worry about copyright. And there's some projects who've used it, mainly the rhythm, but it's there really for anybody to use. So it's quite clever. And I think it's more sophisticated than this usual up, down, down, and so on, because you can express the time signature. You've got the pitch with showing which octave level it is. And also what we've done, I think, with the initial phase of that project, we created the coding for the music incipit as it stands, but the incipits are usually taken from the first publication that this appeared in. But of course, you get different keys in different publications. So we did another code, always beginning on C. So everybody has got the reference, and then you write your code as if it was always beginning on C, and that's the one way everybody can do the tune the same, and then that helps the searching. So this is my idea, that I'm hoping that perhaps there might be some interest for some collaboration over Scottish Tune Index. And I think one of my aims is obviously to try to get this virtual card catalog made available to the public, because that will give you access to searchable access to the tune indexes as they stand. But then hopefully we can develop a proper tune index on its own that will enable the tune searching, which I think would be really, really great. So again, you just have the URLs there for the data foundry. Yeah, the data foundry, again, I think earlier on I just gave the general URL, but this is the one for the catalog retroconversion data, which you can just download the whole lot and then just search for the tune indexes and then perhaps just separate them out and see what you can do with it. I think that would, at the moment, will just be useful for some kind of keyword searching, but I think the virtual card catalog is a bit easier searching. And then also you can see the images of the index cards. So yeah, and then there's my contacts. You can always write to music@NLS UK or just to me directly. And that's it.
Well, mega thank you.
Whirlwind.
There's so much about choid, you know, because na Bruidhnidh be chinamachas na Bruidhnidh Chiùil dói really Gailearaidh. So thank you for talking us through the potential for what can be done with some of these materials now that they're encoded, but you know that there's more places to take them yet. Full of opportunities for lots of people. Can we see? I'll maybe switch off the screen share so that we can see colleagues online more easily. And I'll see if we can put them. There we are. Now, questions be anybody would like to ask Almut a question or raise a point or ask her where to go looking for a tune thereafter themselves. Carton Elena. I can't necessarily see you all at once, so there's a thing at the bottom of the Zoom chat where you can put your hand up or put a message in the chat, and I should see that. I think I quite want to. Oh, no,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Almut, thank you so much for that. So you mentioned that the tune index, which you're aiming for, is that going to be based on the resources in the National Library, or does your ambition stretch wider than that?
Well, I think initially the data we have is based on our collection, but then obviously I think once it's set up, there's no reason why it shouldn't cover other locations, other materials, because the main thing is you want to actually identify the tunes in these publications, or even, I mean, manuscripts in the future, I mean, in any sources. And then obviously it's quite useful if one perhaps adds a field in to actually show locations. So that you also know how these publications are available in these different libraries and archives all over the world. It doesn't really matter, and then it'll be a brilliant resource. So I think initially perhaps just to see that we get all the data together and have a setup, but then also to think about when it's set up how people can contribute to the resource and really make it an international resource eventually. But I suppose you have to start somewhere and to just make sure that things are working, and then you can just grow from there.
Already. Do you know what is there a plan for when it'll be live?
Well, it very much depends now. Obviously, one probably should allow for getting some funding for this. The pilot database is quite old now. I think in principle, it probably still works in a similar way nowadays, but one has to future-proof it as well when you put more data in, and obviously to see, what the long-term situation is with the software and so on. and then you just need to see who's got how much time to then actually get this ready to take in the data. I mean, I'm just very pleased that we do have quite a bit of raw data that we didn't have when we had the pilot database. And one of the problems with not getting the funding was we didn't have the resources to actually get more of the data input done. So that's at least there. But I think just for the technical development, I think it's not that difficult. I think it's doable, but you need to see, it could take you at least a year to get the funding for something, and you need to get a project group together and see who might want to collaborate with it. And then I don't think it requires lots and lots of funding necessarily. I think if you just first of all concentrate on getting it technically done, so it's ready to take the data in, and then you get the first setup. With the original project that we tried to do with AHRC was to actually expand on it and get researchers involved to write little articles and entries on the different songs, but all of that can be developed in the future as well, of course, that might become just part of people's ordinary research to then contribute to the resource, but first to really get the technical setup safe or future-proofed as well.
Can I ask on that, the coding language that was developed in the 60s, how compatible is that with other forms of coding that people are using on similar databases? I suppose one of the things you'd want to think about if you're wanting to expand outwards or draw in collaborators is whether there'd be the possibility for a little interlegibility between different approaches to different kinds of materials.
Well, the Rhythm database, they are using also their slight adaptation of the plain easy code. But when I think that we use the fuzzy pattern searching code tested on our system, we didn't have to adapt it, it worked. So even though we had our slight adaptation of the plain easy code, as did Rhythm, the one code by the same person to enable the fuzzy pattern searching worked on both. And I think Rhythm, because they now with the same system, they work the print, covering the printed music as well as the manuscript music and theory books and things. So all Rhythm is using these facilities, and of course they're the big international union catalog database. So in a way, that's actually quite that one could collaborate with them. And I mean, I've got contacts there. And in the past, when we did the pilot, they also said they would support it and collaborate and so on. And so I think this is probably what we could do, with the Scottish Tune Index, even though it's a very specialist index. Then obviously, if you think in terms of generally music, the music community, but I think there's obviously worldwide interest in Scottish music anyway. So I think all sorts of people would want to use it.
Almut, over the years, a lot of our students have made use of Charlie Gore's Scottish Fiddle Music.
Yeah, well, his index, of course, he spent hours, hundreds of hours, millions of hours in the National Library using our index to develop his index, because our index wasn't published. And then, obviously, he published his index, which is great. So
is a lot of his material transferable to...
Well, I would assume that, of course, that tune index was, published and printed, and it just works in a certain way. One could kind of see how, what features one might want to try and see whether one could get that kind of integrated.
So that kind of depends. Coding.
It's I mean, this is the thing, I mean, the question is also, and this is what I try to do. We've got various AI projects at the moment going on that I wanted to see whether I can get some AI specialists to actually look at the idea of, I mean, the OCRing of music doesn't really work terribly well, but whether one could find some way of AI assistance to actually help. But if you show proper printed note, not handwritten, proper printed note, and train AI system, And this is this note, and then you show that because the coding is just pure ASCII, which is very easy for a computer. And if you then kind of train it, this will always be this code that you might actually find a way that you can automate the system of doing the coding. I've actually had the song index, the rest of the incipients coded by a human being as part of, at the end of a little add-on project from the retro for, I think, 2 months or something. And but obviously, if I wanted to code the instrumental index, doesn't have the incipients, it's just the song index. So it would be nice over time to get more and more coded. And of course, now that we've got a large body of digitized full text music, people can actually then go to the source on the digital gallery, see the actual music, and then you could actually put the coding and the incipit in from there. So there's ways of doing that. But I think that is something, first to load all the raw data we already have on, get the system to work, and then see how one can add more data and complete more data, i.e. incipits for the other instrumental indexes in the backpack index.
So it's important it could show us the connections between Gaelic music and Lowland music.
For example, yes.
But a fuzzy search could allow us to look for similar
things,
and
yes.
motifs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And indeed across in Nova Scotia, which would be interesting to bring in as well.
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah.
And it could help us find the you know, in Clayford and stuff, where you've got Scotch tune.
Oh yes,
you know,
exactly.
the real
Oh yes, exactly. Yes. Yes.
The market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of using AI is quite interesting, actually, because we were talking about this over dinner last night, the question of where a tune ends or a version of a tune ends,
Yes.
a tune starts, and to musicians who are familiar with material, you can kind of get a feel for it, but whether or not that could be in any way encoded or that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, how fuzzy is your fuzzy? It's really
Yes.
interesting. I think because we've got to be down the road before too long, and we probably better give you a chance to catch your breath and get down there. So maybe time we should bring this part of today's proceedings to a close. But before we do that, let's thank you once again for the talk.
And could I just ask anybody who's interested in getting access to a searchable tune index kind of now, by way of having this virtual card catalog where you can actually see the card itself and then a little bit of data fields next to it, but then it's a searchable thing. If you are interested, please email me, because then I can, the more demand there is for this, the quicker I can make it available, because I think that's very easy to do. And I just need to prove to the powers to be that there is actually interest out there. And I think that would also be very useful, because people might then see what's in the indexes and what we could then put as an natural data into the proper tune index. And then that might just also help getting something off the ground.
Super. Right. Wish lists to Almut. And before wish lists, thanks.